not trouble others by thoughts, words, or deeds, and who are ready to give up what they have in my service are known as my devotees. So somehow the scriptures always say, if you meet such wonderful devotees, you must run and do two things. You must pay your obeisances to them, then you must serve them, and then you must inquire from them and listen to them. So when Narada Muni did this, he served these Bhagavatars, these devotees who had come to his home, and as a little boy he brought them what they needed to eat, he washed their clothes, and more than anything else he sat in the corner, and when they were talking about Krishna's fantastic pastimes, he listened with great attention and was very much absorbed. As a result of this hearing, something happened which the Bhagavatam describes in the second canto. He lost his attachment to material life, to the material body and his mind and his concepts, and he understood, I'm a pure soul, I have a relationship with the Supreme Soul, with the Lord. As he listened more, he developed the idea of devotional service. And when these saints left him, they gave Narada Muni a very powerful mantra. Remember, Krishna had said when he appeared to Narada Muni when he was this cursed Gandharva, I will not teach you my mantra now, but the saints who work in close connection with Krishna gave him this wonderful mantra. This mantra describes Vasudeva Krishna on one side, then on the other side Balaram, Sankarshan, and in the midst two of Krishna's sons, Aniruddha and Pradyumna. A very powerful mantra. Narada Muni told his disciple Vyasadeva that he got this mantra. I would like to chant this mantra with you. You'll find it on the blackboard. Please repeat after me. Om, no, repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Dubhyam. Now it's your turn. Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya. Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya. Namah Sankarshanaya cha. Namah Sankarshanaya cha. Om Namo Bhagavate Dubhyam. Om Namo Bhagavate Dubhyam. Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya. Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya. Namah Sankarshanaya cha. Namah Sankarshanaya cha. And now all of us together, please. Om Namo Bhagavate Dubhyam. Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Pradyumnaya Niruddhaya. Namah Sankarshanaya cha. I need to interrupt here my katha. You know, all what you have heard so far was what Narada Muni had told his disciple Vyasadeva. He had come to Vyasadeva to convince him that whatever he had written in the form of the Vedas was incomplete because he had not glorified Krishna. And he wants to now tell him his own story, to tell him how wonderful Krishna is. And when he came to this part where he chanted this mantra, Vyasadeva heard it, and he immediately fell down before the lotus feet of Narada and said, please teach me this mantra. Jiva Goswami said that Narada taught him how to chant it properly, and by its power he could later write the Bhagavad Purana. Prabhupada comments, if you chant the holy name and the mantras of the Lord without offenses, then your heart will be so purified that you will, these are his words, rise above the material plane, and you will actually be able from that position to understand the inner meaning of the Vedic literature, including the Lord himself and his own transcendental Dham. So it's a very nice mantra if you want to chant it sometimes. Jiva Goswami translates it like this. He says, I offer my respect to you, Bhagavan Shri Krishna. And then he said, let us respect also Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha and Sankarshan in our minds. He says it in Krishna Sandava, the Anuchetya. So Vyasadeva was all the time listening to Narada Muni. This was such a story, you know. His own guru told him how he had a conflict with Brahma, was cursed and became a sensualist, but could not, but remained very Krishna conscious, and all, and how then Krishna arranged that he met these great saintly persons who then gave him this mantra, and as he listened, he again needed to interrupt him and say, my dear spiritual master, what did you do after the departure of those great sages? How did you pass your life after being initiated by them? And how then did you obtain this present body? You are no longer a boy, a Shudra boy, you are Narada Muni, after having given up your old one. And how is it that you remember your past life so clearly that you are telling all this to me? Please speak on this subject matter. Narada Muni said, be patient, I'm just telling you. And then he said, I was just 5 years old when these saints came to my home, and then they left. And I was with my mother. My mother was everything to me, and I was everything to my mother. So she bound me with a motherly affection. She wanted to look properly after my maintenance, but she was so poor, she was a maintenance, and could not really do much for me. I remembered all the time what the sadhus had told me and the impression which they left in my heart. And although I was just a boy, I kept this mantra, I kept chanting this mantra. Then one evening, my poor mother left the house. I had been hungry. And she said, I'm going to our cow and milk a little milk, and I will serve you the milk, my dear son. But she never returned. On the way back, she was found by the people of my village. An angry snake had bitten her in her feet, and she died immediately. When the people found her, she was already dead. I thought very deeply about what had happened. Now just imagine this. let's stop for a moment and think a little bit. The greatest shock for a 5-year-old child is when the mother is angry at the child. But even greater is when the mother dies. Because the mother is the only shelter for the boy. You must understand. But I think we can understand. Remember when you are 5 years, when this is so small. I'm thinking of the little children in our Dharma castle who are so dependent on mother. Ooh, very, very shocking experience. But Narada Muni contemplated deeply. Do you know what he understood this to mean? He says it in his own words. At that time, I already was convinced that everyone and everything moves under the control of the Lord. Just as a puppet master controls his puppet and makes it dance in various ways and sometimes makes it fall down dead on the floor, the Lord controls everything and everyone. This was arranged by the Lord. And I further knew that the Lord is always concerned for the welfare of his devotees. In other words, it's all right. The Lord had a higher plan in this. So I thought, although it was difficult at first, that the death of my mother was actually an arrangement of Krishna. And thus I took it as an opportunity to leave my village for good. I did not even stop to perform any funeral rites. I departed immediately for the north. Little 5-year-old boy. I heard from one acharya that Narada Muni was expected as the only son to perform the, how do you call it, the funeral rites. But he was a boy, so he took the villagers said, here, the fire. He just took it and stuck it to the house, and the whole house with the mother burned, and he left. He said, I had absolutely no knowledge of foreign countries. He didn't say, I have no Schengen visa. I had absolutely no knowledge of foreign countries. So I just wandered on and on. On my journey, I passed through many flourishing towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, that's where they make the new trees, and natural forests. But I didn't stop anywhere. I was detached. We can understand. At the time of a death of a person who's close to us, the world looks grey. I remember when all of us walked out of the crematorium, where we had just burned Salanandi's body in the fire of the crematorium. We went out, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing the world had to offer to us. We were just grey, and we were detached from anything. Finally, Narada continues, I entered a densely dark and fearful jungle that was the playground of snakes, owls, and jackals. Our Prabhupada says that those who are monks, I think we have a few amongst us, also I think this refers to Grihastas. It's their duty to experience the variety of God's creation by traveling alone through all the forests and hills, towns and villages, etc. Because by traveling like this, you get faith in God and the strength of mind, and so on. Have you experienced this when you travel? You're on the air lines, and you are traveling, and you're tired, and all of a sudden you hear someone, are you a monk? Yes. Can you just explain some spiritual knowledge to me? Oh yes, yes. You are interested? What in particular you are interested? Oh, you decide. Then you explain to the persons, and you feel, wow, this is good. And you see how they come to life, and you understand, oh, Krishna is even here in the airplane, and he's in the heart of these people. They just need to get a little faith, and then they connect with him. In fact, this traveling and experiencing Krishna everywhere is very important, especially to those who are monks and those who are sannyasis. When Prabhupada gave his first sannyas initiation, there were 4 devotees. They were only 5 years in the Krishna consciousness, and he said 2 rules for you. 2 rules. Never think you are alone. Wherever you are, wherever you go, Krishna will always be with you. I think this is a very good. This is when you also go, you should think this. Never think you are alone. Wherever you are, wherever you go, Krishna is always with you. And then he said, second rule, never go where you are not wanted. I would like to draw your attention to this, because many of you are travelers, you like to wander, you like to move about, and I would like to just tell you that this can be, you can make this into a spiritual practice by really meditating on Krishna while you do this. There was once a father and his son Subhadra, and they